as we alluded to earlier, you were a commentator for the All Whites, which is a fabulous little nod for you. And that coincided with the All Whites winning 4-0 over Malaysia at the great, and similar breakers
Choice of words there, yeah.
taking the piss here, stadium of North Harbour Stadium, which the one grandstand did look very full. It's just it's so strange to see a team like the All Whites, like a national team, who are fostering a connection to the community. They are like, the fans are engaged. There's players playing in the best leagues around the world. Football is on fire in Aotearoa. We know that. We know there is a hearty community of football fans and strong football foundations in New Zealand. And then the game is played at a stadium that has one stand. And it's just always strange to see North Harbour Stadium doing stuff like that. But shout out to it, because it's the third concrete monstrosity in Auckland, which seems absolutely ridiculous, but it is what it is. And the All Whites had a win. Like, these are funky times. There's been a few funky times off the top of my head recently, because we've got a 4-0 win for the All Whites, and the White Ferns are back in T20 World Cup semi-final. So it's a cool little period. What was it a 0-0 draw against Tahiti a few days ago?
No, a 3-0 win, but
Right,
it felt like a 0-0 draw just because it was one of those kind of games. It was where Tahiti sat, 5-4-1 deep formation. Not only were they not pressing, they were basically running away whenever the All Whites got the ball. Like, they didn't want to engage defensively until well inside their own half, just compacting the field. And the All Whites got bit boring with just lumping crosses in there. And understandably, the pitch wasn't great, so they couldn't really do a lot else. You couldn't really go dribbling past guys. You couldn't really do a lot of short one-touch kind of movement off the ball stuff. Just wasn't the conditions for that. Also, afternoon kickoff in Vanuatu doesn't help matters, but Elijah just did score very early, so they were leading the whole way. It felt like a bit of a grinding affair. I think one of the messages I got was it felt like walking football. I think that was probably pretty accurate. But they did score a couple goals again in the second half. So 3-0 win, which wasn't fluent or fluid, but it was a win. It was what they needed out of that game, and too many extenuating circumstances to expect anything other than anything on the performance side of things or whatever. You just get in there, get out with the results. Sweet as they did that. Malaysia at North Harbour was much more the occasion to be able to actually play a little bit of football and put on some style points as well. And they did that. Overall, they did that. It was 0 at half time, but they'd had a fair few chances. It was a little bit frustrating, I think, at times. Yeah, they got still stuck in that pattern of just whipping and crosses, and you've only got one striker there, and it was not Chris Wood on this occasion. Chris Wood did come off the bench and score later on, but it was Ben Waine starting, and he's not necessarily the guy. I mean, he's doing a lot of movement and helping set up chances as well, but then he's not the target man to aim for, because he's out there putting in crosses. He's not there in the middle of the box, and even if he is, he's either going near post or he's dropping off or whatever, but you need someone else in there. You need a couple of targets if that's going to work. But Malaysia defended very well in the first half, and then I think once they conceded, they lost they sort of lost that little bit of extra whatever it was that was helping them just continually just swarm around, getting lots of blocks, bodies between ball and goal. So I guess you got to say, good patient performance from the All Whites, who did create chances in the first half. Maybe not quite enough clear chances, but once they did get a goal, they were able to run away with it. And important probably to see them being fairly ruthless. And people remember the games that they're played in front of home crowds. Like, especially if you're there, that's a lasting memory. And the All Whites do have a reputation, very well deserved, for not being able to score a lot of goals. So if you can turn it on for your home crowd, you can show them that you've got those capabilities, then there you go. That's goes a long way towards helping these things. And it was a winnable game against the non-Oceania opposition, and they won it. And they won it fairly comfortably. So it was good solid stuff. They they ground things out as they could in the first half, maybe made a few necessary adjustments in the second half. I'm not sure exactly what that might have been, but it might simply just have been a case of staying patient and stick with it. The goal's going to come. We're creating chances. And when it did, they capitalized, and then they continued to capitalize. So it was a good solid evening in the end for the All Whites there.
Ultimately, they did win these two games 7-0 combined
Yeah.
tally. So that's pretty decent for an All Whites team who, as you said, have struggled to score goals. And each one of the goals against Malaysia was like a. Well, it doesn't sound like this was the case in the first half, but each one of the second half goals was just a well-taken goal. Chris Wood at the back post pounces on his opportunity. There was Matthew Garbutt slotting it in the bottom left corner, I believe. All goals had great build-up as well, which is a good sign. Elijah just knocking one in as well. And then we had Logan Rogerson just blasting one in from the edge of the box and a delectable finish from the Auckland FC player Logan Rogerson. Off the top of my head as well, A-League starts this weekend, so maybe we'll preview the Auckland FC Wellington Phoenix games on our Thursday subscriber podcast. Let's add that to the sub-pod menu. Who was your best player for the All Whites across the two games?
Well, I like your point on the build up for those goals as well, because there were some nicely taken finishes, but they're also the moves to get to them was slick. And yeah, Libby Cacace with a couple of assists, I think that was pretty influential. He set up the first two goals. He had a big game, making sure he was, getting as far forward as he could up that left wing. Yeah, he was very solid. I would say Elijah Just was excellent, just playing through the middle, but sliding side to side, creating overloads, just getting involved, lots of touches. He played a gorgeous ball through to Costa Barbarouses to set up. I think it was the Chris Wood goal. He slips him in down the sideline and he chips it over to the back post where Chris Wood was lurking exactly where he needed to be, and then managed to contort himself in midair slightly as the keeper got a touch on it. That's just Chris Wood, poaching striker, knowing where he needs to be and knowing how to get that ball in the back of the net. He had one or two other chances he might have added to that as well. So yeah, Elijah Just was very good. I thought Marko Stamenic's control in the midfield set a tone from the very start and was pretty excellent. And although they didn't have a lot to do, don't think there were any feet put wrong by Michael Boxall or Tyler Bindon at centre back either. There was just a couple of times where they got caught out, not them getting caught out, but the team got caught out just with Malaysia trying to hit on the counter attack, and those two were exactly where they needed to be. A couple good interventions in there, just nice solid stuff. They scored 7 goals across these two games. They also didn't concede any goals across these two games, so that's something else that the coaches always love clean sheets. I think clean sheets are overrated sometimes, but you take them where you can get them. That's good stuff. There were quite a few good performances in there, but yeah, I might lean towards Elijah Just if I had to pick out an absolute standout, although Cacace and Stamenic should be there up there with him.
Well, just for those three quickly, what are they up to in the Flying Kiwis department?
Elijah Just is on loan, but probably a loan that will turn permanent, I would imagine, with SKN St. Pölten in the Austrian second division. Recently scored his first goal for them. He's actually scored in 3 games in a row. He scored his first goal for them before the international window, goes and scores against Tahiti, then he scores against Malaysia. So he's in good form. He looked excellent in that St. Pölten game as well. So quality from him. It is a bit of a weird move. He went from Danish second tier to Austrian second tier, and the Austrian second tier is formatted in a way where it's actually quite hard to get promoted. I think there might actually only be one team that goes up, and it doesn't look like it'll be St. Pölten. So he's not necessarily gone on an upwards move, but at least footballing wise so far, it seems to be a nice fit. So that's also important. It's just, can you play good minutes? And if you're going to play in a league which maybe it's not as challenging as it could be, well, okay, then go and dominate it. Bunch of goals, bunch of assists, and so far so good on that count with Elijah Just. Cacace still at Empoli, where, as far as I know, he's coming up to an expiring contract. And nothing's been done about that yet, which is interesting. It might just be he doesn't want to sign one. He's sitting on the bench most games. He's only played 104 minutes in Serie A. He is the backup left back behind Giuseppe Pizzella, who, well, he was the backup left back behind him last year too, to be fair. But Pizzella last year broke his foot or something like that around about this time of the season, actually, and then missed 3 or 4 months, which gave Cacace a good opportunity to get plenty of minutes in there. Hasn't broken for him like that yet this season. Empoli have been in very good form though, and he's done well when he has gotten little space opportunities. So far off the bench, he even played as a winger one game. He's had a couple cup starts as well, so he's keeping that ticking over. He's just basically staying ready, trying to do what he can, and waiting for his extended opportunity to come. Because Pizzella is an injury-prone player, but yeah, the curious bit about it with Cacace is that, assuming that's correct, that his contract is about to expire, I've never heard anything about any other extensions or anything like that. Well, once you hit the last 6 months of your contract, so that'll be January 1st onwards, you're actually allowed to negotiate free transfers for the next season outside of the country that you're currently in. So he couldn't negotiate with Italian clubs until after his Empoli contract runs down, but he can with foreign clubs. And there were a couple of German teams linked with him in the off season. So I wondered if they would cash in on him then and sell him if there was that opportunity. There was that opportunity, but they didn't sell him. Now they're coming towards a transfer window where if you're going to sell him and get anything, any kind of profit for a guy they did spend a couple mil on in the first place, well, that's the time. There's no other time. If you don't sell him in January, you don't sell him. You'll leave on a free. And there hasn't been a new contract yet, which suggests that probably there isn't going to be one. And if you're a backup who has the opportunity to start elsewhere, I'm not sure you would want to sign one anyway. So it might just be that they want to run down that contract and let him walk, or it might be that they try to cash in January. It might be that they try to cash in January, but he says no and then just signs on a free somewhere else. Will that be in Italy? Will that be elsewhere? I don't know, but interesting little angle to be aware of with Cacace in the context of his season. Who was the other one? Marko Stamenic, Olympiacos. I don't think he settled in as well at Olympiacos as he did at Crvena Zvezda last year. He's been a bit in and out. There was an injury to one of their other more experienced midfielders, which gave him a few starts in a row. Then that guy comes back. But then actually lately they've had a 19-year-old youth team guy starting ahead of him for a couple of games, which is not the most encouraging thing. He's played all right when he's played, but I just don't think he's been able to play consistently enough to get into any kind of rhythm yet. So yet to win over the Olympiacos fans, hasn't really had a huge opportunity to do so, but it's fairly early days. The Olympiacos are a good team. Like that's not a team you just walk straight into the starting lineup of. It does take a while to earn that. And one thing he does have in his favor is he's not actually an Olympiacos signing. He's a Nottingham Forest signing who's been loaned to Olympiacos, but they have shared ownership. So there will be at least some pressure on Leia. Let's not hang this guy out to dry. He's an investment of the parent club, so we need to look after him. So we'll see what it looks like for him. I would like to. He's good enough to work in and be a consistent starter for Olympiacos, but it just maybe a little bit too early to have expected that to happen so far. I don't know.
And what's your pick of the biggest, most important nuggets from the New Zealand National League over the weekend? Aside from flares being around the Kiwi footballing traps, they'd like to see a bit of ruckus in New Zealand football.
Yeah, they set off 2 at once at the Wellington Olympic game, and then they scored again straight away, and there were no flares. So it's just you should have had more confidence in your boys. You should have waited for it. But I mean, the Wellington Olympic, to be fair, hadn't scored a goal in their first 2 games, which was rare. And then I was reminded that they actually didn't score in their previous game either, the Chatham Cup final, which they won. It was an own goal in their favour. So, I mean, I guess you'd say they scored. They had a goal, but they didn't score at one of their own players. So just a little bit of a drought there from the top scoring team in the country, like the most ruthless, brutal attacking team going around. They got caught out a little bit there, but they managed to put 4 past Eastern Suburbs to soar back into form. Auckland City got held 1-1 by Kashmir Technical. It was an interesting one. And there was actually Auckland City completely dominated position and had a bunch of chances and probably should have won. But Kashmir Tech had a runaway right at the very end, last play of the game, and there was a big appeal for handball against Adam Mitchell. I thought the arm was tucked in just enough to be understandable. And I think you're a brave referee if you give a 94th minute penalty against the team in a 1-1 situation anyway for a handball that's not completely obvious. But yeah, I understand also why the Kashmir Tech guys thought that thought that they should have got something for that. So that was a fun game. Kashmir Tech just sitting and defending very well and frustrating Auckland City. But the real funkiness this week absolutely came on the women's side of things, and more than anything, it was a game between. Well, there's a couple good games. I mean, Eastern Suburbs had a heap of chances against Waterside Karori, and were just consistently frustrated by Annie Foote, the Karori goalkeeper, who just made save after save after save after save. And then with 10 minutes to go, Karori go up the other end, win a penalty, and then win 1-0 away from home. So great result from them. Wellington United also had a big win against the Phoenix Reserves. So the Phoenix Reserves haven't been very good. Their first team's only just started preseason, so they're still at that stage where it's like everyone needs their opportunity. They haven't sort of whittled down the squad into starting 11, bench, and then rest of the players who are free to go play National League, like how the men's team have done, where you're seeing 4 or 5 contracted first teamers, mostly the scholarship guys, but not only the scholarship guys, getting minutes in the men's reserves. Not seeing that for the women, and they've lost a few of their best younger young players to the Under-17 World Cup, which is about to start in a couple of days. I think it's on Thursday is New Zealand's first game there. So the Phoenix women reserves have not been very good. They've been just leaking goals left, right, and centre. Wellington United smashed them on the weekend, 4-0. So pretty comfortable there. But point being that Wellington United and Waterside Karori are both undefeated and with near the top of the table. So they're both been excellent. I do not think either of those teams should be underrated in any way, just in a way that might otherwise have happened, because like Canterbury Pride, people know the heritage of them, even though they're not at the level they have been a few years ago. Southern United made the grand final last year, so a couple of those federation teams, people know what to expect from them, and the Auckland teams are always expected to be up near the top. Those two Wellington clubs, they can compete with anyone. They're hanging about. They've looked superb so far. But the game of the round was it was West Coast Rangers against Canterbury United Pride down in Canterbury at English Park, where West Coast Rangers last week had done this, like they're 2-0 up at halftime against Western Springs, absolutely crunching them, could have been 4-0, found themselves hauled back to 2-2, largely thanks to the genius of Rina Harano, who also had a superb game for Western Springs again this week, and then scored in stoppage time to take the lead against Western Springs, but then conceded straight after, like scored like a 93rd minute goal and conceded straight afterwards at the last kick of the game to draw 3-0. So devastating for them 2 weeks ago. This week, they were leading 3-2 going into stoppage time away against Canterbury United. And then they conceded again. Another stoppage time equalizer, you're thinking, not 2 weeks in a row. Well, guess what? It wasn't 2 weeks in a row, because they then conceded a stoppage time winner. So Canterbury United scoring in the 95th and 97th minutes, I think it was, to win that game. The winning goal was from Charlotte Mortlock, curls it straight in from the corner kick. Like, just whips it in, back post, dipping, swerving, beautiful finish. And that was the winning goal for Canterbury. A fantastic victory there. Not the first time I've seen Charlotte Mortlock score a Olympico from a corner either. And I'm pretty sure she scored one from the exact same corner last year. I have a memory of it, at least. So, yeah, crazy stuff going on in them National League games, and that's what we love about it.
Who, you mentioned Rina Harano, who stands out as the best Kiwi players, men and women, in the National League so far?
Women, I don't think people will be surprised when I say Chloe Knott. It's been just superb throughout the first few weeks for Auckland United. She just playing as a midfielder, but pushing forward into an attack quite a lot, just getting into great areas, linking up beautifully. Just a menace on the press. It's stepping up and helping out the forwards and just winning tackle after tackle after tackle. It's very clear that she is a level above National League, as is proven because she was played a lot of A-League games up until very recently. And if you're putting together an Auckland FC women's team next year, as they will be, surely that's one of the first people you call, because she's also got the leadership credentials and the experience on top of just being superb for Auckland United. She's been brilliant. Men, I don't know. It's been an interesting it's been an interesting start to the season where you've got like Auckland City are up at the top, but other than that, you've seen like Wellington Olympic have dropped some points, and a few of these other teams have been up and down. Like Kashmir Tech have already, as well as getting a draw away at Kiwatia Street, they've had a 4-0 win and a 4-0 loss. So they've gone all over the place with their results. I'm not sure who I'd pick as the standout Kiwi player from that. For a long time, it was just Cam Howison. There's a few guys at Wellington Olympic who would be in that bracket, but they just haven't played quite as well to start the season. But Jack Henry, Sinclair, Justin Gully, Ben Mata, some of those types, Hamish Watson even. I'm gonna have to defer on that one, or at least check my notes and have a
favorite player, like who you need to watch.
Well, he's not Kiwi, but Garvin Coughlin is the best player, full stop. So we'll clear that one up. This seems like a good opportunity to hype up Stipe Ukich again, though, because he's been pretty handy. He was shut down quite nicely by Kashmir Tech. But I'm not saying he's the best player in the National League, but he might have the highest potential. He's a maniac. What I love about him is he looks, because obviously he had a superb game in the Chatham Cup final. He's carried that form on into the National League, although Kashmir Tech did as well as anyone at shutting him down. But even then, there were a couple of spare moments. Like, he didn't have a great game overall, but there were moments where he would just like burst past the defender and create something. He can dribble. He can do the skill stuff. He's a good finisher, but also, and he's pacey too, but also for someone who's like doesn't turn 18 for another couple months, he's actually real strong too. He's tall and he's fairly bulky. And there was, against Wellington Olympic last week, there was an instance where he like backed into a defender, and when the defender's going up for a header, and sort of like flips him over a little bit. It's kind of a dirty play, but at the same time I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to encourage this kind of behavior, but at the same time, if a 17-year-old is out there asserting himself like that, that feels like an overall good sign, even if it was a bit of a scummy move. But he's dropping shoulders on defenders, he's holding dudes off, he's strong, and for his age to have that much of a complete package is pretty insane.